people I need
All right,
to catch up
we're
with.
live.
Write that down.
Brent just told me we should
Let's
probably
do it.
mostly talk about politics, not training. So that's what we're going to get into.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Well, thanks for, we chatted just briefly, but thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I know you've been busy. It seemed like you've been traveling a lot, and you just said that you got your first official kind of chill weekend. Well, what might be chill for you. So how's everything going?
Yeah, things are good here. Yeah, long trip. I think we were away for a little over a month, and yeah, went all the way south to Denver, east to Indianapolis, Chicago, north to Winnipeg, and then back west to where I live, which is Kelowna, BC. So really long trip, 10,500 kilometers, I believe, is the total amount we put on the odometer, which is a lot. In miles, that's I don't know, less.
A lot.
So, 0.7 or something, but no, it's been good. It's good to be home.
Were you like renting cars and flying, going back and forth, or did you just pack everything up and go?
Yeah, we had a trailer, so we had our vehicle and we had our trailer behind that. Before that, I flew in and out of Tennessee, and so I think that can be a bit confusing. If you saw some of those clips, it's like, oh, he's in Tennessee. Oh, all of a sudden he's in Idaho. Like, what is this? So yeah, no, I flew in and out of Tennessee. And then I drove, through Spokane, Idaho, Kansas City, Denver, Indianapolis, Chicago, Winnipeg. So yeah,
nice.
Busy.
Okay,
but it's been fun. It was fun to do it with the family and see some friends. It was good.
A little bit of work, a little bit of vacation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good. It was nice because that it's not, you can't really do that when you're competing and training at a high level. At least I didn't, for 10 years. So it was nice to finally do something like that. And we've got another child on the way, so it was nice to make some memories with just the three of us too.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Well, how was Tennessee? Was it mainly were you at Proven, or were you at multiple places?
Proven and Mayhem mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, it was cool. It was good. It's good to see. It's good to actually see CrossFit Mayhem. You've seen the videos of it, and same with Proven. Good to get some time with Tia, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, 2 meccas, 1 state. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't. I want to go again and visit. It's obviously not in Tennessee, but visit Training Think Tank. They're pretty close by as well, so it's good.
Yeah, they're like they're probably like 30 minutes from me. So maybe 40 with traffic.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's a good spot, and they got a new spot, so would be cool to check out the new space.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, cool. How's the body been feeling with travel and training? And are you still trying to, I don't want to say like train at a high level, but obviously anything you do compared to somebody else is probably high level. So how do you keep that in check? Yeah,
I think while I was traveling, training was incredibly inconsistent. It was not up to the standard of even just, if I was lucky, I'd get 3 training sessions a week. I think I averaged, which isn't a lot. I'd prefer to do more. So I got home and I sort of told my wife, I'm like, hey, every day for a month, I'm going to go in the gym and train, even if it's like last night, it was, it was 8 at night, and I'm like, oh crap. And so I went out and I just, sat on the bike and, did some push-ups and then just came inside after 30 minutes. So, my training, honestly, since, retiring from competition since I guess November. So it's been like 6-7 months. It's been pretty, but it's been fun just experimenting with some new things. I knew that when I made the decision to no longer compete, that was the best at CrossFit I would ever be, right? Like there's no turning that back and coming back around to that. And I'm okay with that. So, going to refocus my training and, get a little better for volleyball and just try some different things and, maybe do some endurance-based stuff next summer. But for now, it's just maintenance, having fun in the gym again. And I throw down with my friends sometimes, like we'll, do a CrossFit workout or do some strongman stuff. So it's fun to just not have that pressure to train hard and not have the, not be a slave to training is how I've said it to some people. Cause you're just, that was always the non-negotiable in life, was those training sessions. It's nice to have a little more flexibility in that area.
So do you, does it excite you to train a little bit more because you maybe like you can try something or you can, experiment with something without the pressure of like a timeline, like, well, by this month I need to be in this kind of shape or I need to be hitting this amount of volume, where now you can maybe like, well, I've always wanted to try this for running, or I've always wanted to try this for pressing, but like I don't have this timeline or flexibility to at least try. If it doesn't work, then it's not a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And honestly, less of those those goals are less around. I could see myself maybe in a year or two having some like strength related goals, like maybe it's a snatch or something like that.
Hmm.
But for now, it's really just more kind of doing some movements I haven't done in a while, like doing more rotation work, doing some kind of volleyball specific stuff. I'm going to play some like competitive beach volleyball, and work on my vertical. I want to get better at sprinting as well, which is kind of ties into that more explosive athlete realm. And that was some of the training I really enjoyed. I would only really work on my actual like sprinting, my running in the summers leading up to the games each year in case we did like a zigzag sprint, and we never really got to do one. Which was kind of frustrating because I made some progress in that the last few years, but I got cut before 2019 when they did it, and then 2020 obviously I just competed online, so it wasn't there, and then 21, 22, 23, 24 there wasn't any. But that was something that I made some strides in, and just really started to enjoy. It just like felt good to sprint and like turn corners. So
Yeah.
I'll probably do more of that, but yeah, less. A lot of those goals, I probably need to actually create a measuring stick for some of those. I've retested my vertical, but create like an actual, do a 5-10-5, or do some of the combine type drills, or just make up my own, and then go, okay,
Yeah.
like I'm going to retest this, and even just film it and just see the visual progress and how I'm moving more efficiently, because my deceleration isn't great. So
Yeah.
and I notice that when I am on the volleyball court, I feel a little bit like the Juggernaut, the X-Men character, where
Yeah.
like once I get going in a direction, I like keep building speed. But then if I have to stop and go the other way, if the ball, does something, or the wind or whatever, I feel like I'm like, come on, Brent, like slow down. I can like feel how slow I am changing directions. So especially when I'm not anticipating it, like if you're just doing shuttle runs, it's different. So something I want
Yeah.
to work on and train that deceleration.
Yeah. You got to get the helmet, the like cement or metal
Yeah,
helmet.
it's the big cement helmet. If you edit, I don't know how much you edit these, but maybe you edit that in on me here for a
Pull.
second.
Yeah. That would be tough, but I'll look into it. I'll
Yeah,
hire an editor for it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because in CrossFit, there's not as much deceleration in terms of like what you're saying, like where you're running or you're changing direction. Like when you're lifting, you might decelerate by catching the bar or something, but it's a lot different.
Yeah,
Especially when you start getting faster too, because if you start sprinting more or you start getting a little more efficient, then you have to decelerate even more.
yeah,
And yeah, it's tough because there's no even at like the regional or semifinal level, it's a little more rare for people to see something like that, which would be cool, I think, if they found a way besides shuttle runs.
yeah. And I don't, honestly, I don't know if you have to. Like, I think,
No,
CrossFit
just
is,
cool.
yeah, it'd be cool, right? And I don't think that, when you have a regional and you only have 6 workouts, it's like if you add something like that in, it's like that means you're leaving something else out that's probably more important. And even
Hmm.
this, for the sport of CrossFit, I don't think you need to add in like we need to add in more rotation. It's like you don't rotate in Olympic weightlifting, like
Yeah,
you're not really rotating in when you're pushing the bobsled to get started on the track. Like, you're not rotating when you're sprinting the 100-meter dash, right? Well, I mean, there's like,
yeah,
counter rotation through the core, but yeah. So I mean, I don't see it as like necessarily a flaw of the sport. It's just a reality of what it is and probably what it should be. And but that's in contrast to what you need to be successful in, some other sports, whether that's like playing baseball or whatever that is. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Did you catch any of the Syndicate Crown?
Yeah, I watched some of it. I mean, I had a busy weekend. I was just doing stuff with family, but I did watch every heat of Shelby Neal, quite a few of the
Mhm.
men's heats. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good. How do you like the? Do you like any particular workout?
Yeah, I love JR's work, right? I think
Mhm.
JR is one of the best minds in the sport when it comes to programming competitive CrossFit events. And so it was good to see him do his stuff on, that's the biggest stage he's had the opportunity to program for. I think I like the finale. I think that was like a really solid finale. It was kind of that sweet spot between, not like a full out sprint, but you had to go, right? You really had to push, and there was no room for mistakes. And so for those that don't know, you kind of went really fast down and back chipper. So you did 9 heavy sandbag cleans. I think it was 15 ring muscle ups, 21 cal row, 15 bar muscle ups, 9 sandbag cleans. So you had to really move. And then I liked the hundreds chipper. That was cool. That's like, you
Yeah.
just haven't seen those for so many years. And it was funny. I was talking to him, or I don't know, within the last year, I'd been mentioning that to someone. I was like, oh, there was a time where the long endurance workout or the longer workout at, a regional S competition would be, 4 sets of, would be something like that. It would just be this big chipper with like 100 chest to bars, 100 dumbbell snatch, 100 pistols, and 100 cal row, or whatever that would be.
Yeah.
And we've just sort of trended away from that, which isn't, a bad or a good thing. It's just a thing. And so to kind of bring that back, and I think the movement choices he had there were applicable. I think it was cool.
Yeah. Or the famous 50s where you got to shine.
Yeah, the 50s. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And even in the open, they had the 55, right? It was 55 deadlifts, 55 wall ball, then row, then handstand push-ups, and it was an AMRAP, but still. So yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think he did a great job. I think the yoke one was a good test. I think just the way it was set up with the entry and exits, it got a little bit crowded. Which I don't know if, it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, but it was still good. Still good to watch. And, there's still some races in the last 2 rounds to kind of jockey for position on that yoke. So it was good.
Yeah. I saw the floor and saw that it kind of slowly started happening heat after heat. But then after looking at it, it would still be kind of hard to mitigate that in any way, even if you had like a wider area for them to like run in and run out. It seemed hard, but I don't know, unless you staggered maybe, but I don't know how else you could really do it without a lot of space.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, it might just be that knowing that space limitation, maybe the movements change slightly to intentionally create a little more separation. But it was still good. I mean, I don't think it like really affected anything. It was just at the times it would be a bit clogged if someone was coming out of their lane and someone was going into their lane, and you're like trying to get on your yoke, but it was good. It was still good work.
Yeah. By the final heat, I was seeing a lot of the guys, like they were like peeking as they were carrying the yoke and like to look so they could drop and go, or knew if they had to change. So it was interesting seeing people do that. I'm sure that was in the briefing too. Like, hopefully it was like there might be a little collision action here, so just be careful. But yeah, overall it was a cool event.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of race too, because it was tight. It was interesting to see, because it was kind of like for the most part, top 10 girls, top 10 guys were all, maybe not in contention by the final, but they were all kind of worthy of being in contention. They all could have done really well each event. And then to see the second place tie between, one, but tie TIE between Rosema and Luke Parker. So hopefully Luke goes for it on the last chance qualifier. I'd hate to see that, his final event he ties, because he's saying he's going to retire, which I don't know if that means fully retire or what, but it would be cool to see if he got another shot.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I've been in those situations as much or more than anyone else, right? Being on the wrong side of the tie break, or just being in a tie and making, things shuffling out just on the wrong side of where you wanted them to on the last event. So yeah, that's tough. I'm going to message him, and we had some good chats when I was at Mayhem. So that's got to be hard, but he's like, I mean, Luke's a mature man. And so I think he'll be able to see the bright side of it as well as anyone can. I'm sure he's still disappointed, and it's still doesn't make it easy, but he's not one to wallow in pity. So, yeah.
No, for sure. You got to be proud of that effort, because he went for it and did well. Because and that workout too, the final workout's an easy workout to crumble in or to go out too hot. He was still, in the race.
Yeah.
But the last chance qualifier, the way they announced it, seems like it's going to be hard. It seems like there's going to be like 30 athletes in it for one spot.
Yeah, it'll come down to, online qualifiers and at the best of times are a little chaotic. But yeah, with that many guys and girls, and it'll just be really competitive. So yeah, for sure. It's a lot of it'll be, what the programming is, like every comp is. And if I haven't seen the details. We could talk about that after. I don't want to bore everyone with the minutia of logistics of the season, but
yeah. Okay. So the rebrand, Propel.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe get a partnership deal with the drink.
Yeah. I looked into that. I made sure our logo wasn't the same. Should be okay. But I just wanted, honestly, with the Professor project, gosh, I've been doing that now for like almost 7 years, which is crazy how time flies. And that was really, it was very like personality driven. It was very much like, this is what I'm doing. I am competing. If you want to do what I'm doing, do it with me. And that was always kind of the messaging and the take home from that, which, was accurate. But now that I'm not competing, I realize like it just doesn't make as much sense. Doesn't ring as true to me either, because that nickname was more correlated to my work while I competed, and I'm no longer competing. So that's the main reason, was just thinking like, hey, let's do a rebrand. Kind of kept the P's, like Professor Project Propel program, so it kind of at least feels like it's in the same theme, so to speak, rolls off the tongue in a similar way. And yeah, just like the word, and kind of worked on the brand name. Shout out Chad, he helped on the logo, and yeah, just wanted to have a fresh start and a redo. And we're probably going to have some other, well, not probably, we are going to have some other programming tracks that are not as related to competition programming as well, which I'm excited for.
Cool. And people, they just follow you for that, or follow the page, follow another Instagram?
Yeah, there's my Instagram, and then there is an Instagram just called @the_Propel program. So if you're looking for great programming, I'm sure Roman's got you covered, and if not Roman, myself.
Yeah.
I'm not doing any one-on-one coaching. That's not my intention. I kind of assistant coach for like my main coach was David Spur, and so he's with Only Training, and some of the athletes he works with, I lend a hand, and just fun for me. I don't, it's not a paid role or anything, but I just like to help. So I help out Shelby Neal and a few others he works with, just when they need a bit of feedback. But yeah, I'm not looking to do any one-on-one coaching right now. So
yeah, it probably makes it a little more fun and kind of satisfying, where you don't have as much of the stress, but you can go in, and it probably helps him a lot, just being able to know that like I'll have another set of eyes being able to see this and really help me, or me as in David, being able to propel the athlete in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think with like with Shelby, she's an amazing athlete, and so just having David in there doing the day-to-day and the nuts and bolts and the sets and the reps, and I can be there more as a mentor, having I mean, David knows what's going on the floor, but just seeing if there's anything I can do from a bigger picture. And then a lot of it usually comes down to more strategic stuff, and sometimes just more technical stuff. So whenever I was watching the syndicate workouts, making notes on just like the really minute things that most people wouldn't notice on I'll just give you one example. So she would finish her handstand walks, and there was box jump overs, and she was taking too many stutter steps to get herself into a position to begin her first box jump. And I'm going to have to speak with her about it. Maybe she's like, hey, I was tired, I needed that time anyway. But it seemed as though on a few of the occasions, it's like, oh, you were trying to push the pace, but you just weren't spatially covering that distance in an efficient way. So making sure, like, as soon as you get both hands across the line, that you kick down onto your feet, and you're taking meaningful steps towards a specific position before you start your box jumps, because that's wasting maybe 2 seconds, right? And if you're doing
2 seconds around,
2 seconds around, you're getting to the box, I think it was 4 or 5 times, it's like, that's 10 seconds. It's just time on your feet. I'd rather you get to that position and stand there and take 4 deep breaths than take 100 little stutter steps to get there. It's just sort of, and long term, those things, it's interesting. It's less about that, maybe that actual time in that workout, but if you're doing that in a lot of different ways, if you're just not being mindful about that movement in that specific situation, it's probably happening in other places as well.
Yeah.
So just the act of being aware of that, and then turning that into meaningful practice when you're training. So when you're transitioning from the pull-up bar to the barbell, or from the barbell to turning it to the skier, or whatever that is, like, all of those movements need to be very deliberate and very efficient. And if you can do that consistently in your training, you will end up saving time in competition at some point. And at some point, that time is going to be incredibly meaningful. So it's less about the time maybe wasted in that specific workout, because guess what? She's never going to do that specific workout ever again. But if it's happening there, it might be bleeding into these other places that I'm not even aware of, because I'm not watching all of her training. And so if it's happening there, it's probably happening at other places that are as or more, as important.
Yeah. So really the principle of it,
Yeah, it's the principle of it. Yeah.
Maybe you teach this lesson once, and then it's now they're always thinking about it, and then they're carrying it over to other stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Do you know who Dr. Marcora is? You gotta. This is
No.
leading researcher. If he says Brent is the best, he's the best in research on fatigue. So,
Oh, cool.
he's been. I don't know. Have you?
I'm Googling him right now.
Okay. Me and Sam Smith had him on the podcast. He's also been on a podcast with Michael Fitzgerald recently. But I'm trying to remember the book. It's he's mentioned in a book a lot, and I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's him." It's the and Dr. Samuel, you could tell me like How Bad Do You Want It? Was a book, and his research is cited in there a good bit. But he's gotten into CrossFit recently and has a lot of good work you can read on endurance and fatigue, and he's the man.
That's cool. Yeah, that's exciting. I'll have to. Well, I appreciate that for saying I'm the best. I don't know about that, but
yeah, and the book Endure.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, good dude. He's awesome. He was really cool on the podcast. So I got to get him back on. Okay, so I talked to a few people. I got to some consensus of a few notes I wanted to chat about.
Yeah.
The first one is pressing strength, because you're longer, you're taller. It seems like you've put in some effort into finding ways to be great at pressing, and it's pretty hard to improve for some people, just with limb length and maybe just background. And it's required in the sport at all levels. From the burpee to the strict handstand push-up to pressing really heavy overhead. So yeah, just if you could just tell some people a few things that were like, hey, I'm really bad at pressing, or I'm in a plateau. Here's some areas maybe you could look into, because obviously you can't just, throw out some like ultimate design right now and someone's going to be like, I'm going to copy and paste. But, and besides just get stronger and keep doing it, what insights have you found over your career?
I mean, basically that what you said, just keep working at it. It does take time. You're probably not going to see the same type of progress that you might see if like, hey, I'm going to do a back squat program, right? It's just larger muscles. It's a full body movement. So you're more likely to, especially if you're a beginner and intermediate, and if you put in the back squat work for 6 to 12 weeks, like you're going to see improvement. Strict press or strict pressing in that regard, maybe not so much. I would say making sure that you're very clear on your goals for your pressing. So, like, and understanding why you're not good at pressing. So if it's for a lot of the questions, strict handstand push-ups, right? I am bad at handstand push-ups. And so figuring out, what's first the lowest hanging fruit that's going to get you better at that. And for some people, that's flexibility, right? So if your shoulders are not mobile and flexible and stable in a good position, you're going to be, it's like you're running in cement shoes. I'm like, oh, why is my running not getting better? It's like, ditch the cement shoes, right? That's going to be the quickest thing. And not that mobility is a quick fix, but it could be the most important thing. So, flexibility, mobility, that's usually one. Another one could be as simple as like, you might be slightly overweight, right? If you have a higher body fat, you don't need that excess body fat. It is a body weight movement. So if you don't have as much weight, that is going to help. It's the same with ring muscle ups or any gymnastic movement, frankly. So that's just something to, be blunt about. And a lot of people aren't kind of willing to say that to some people. And then from there, it's a question of, typically it's, is it just actual strength? Like, is your strict press or your, incline bench press, is that just weak? Or is it more of a muscle endurance thing? And so there might be some athletes that actually have a pretty strong, in single press, but they become very fatigued quickly, or they do one big set of handstand push-ups and then it's just singles after that. So figuring out, kind of going down the list there and not just applying the exact same solution if it's a different problem. And then I would say, if you're training for your deadlift, you're probably not going to deadlift heavy 3 times a week. At least I hope not for most people. And so for a handstand push-up program, you can do a lot more training in a week. You can put in like shoulder accessory work, definitely 2 dedicated sessions, if not 3, where you're accumulating like high repetition in pressing or pressing adjacent movements, whether that's, front raises or side raises for your delts, or a variety of different tricep accessories or pec accessories, pressing overhead with, you name it, bands, dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, fat grips, trap bar, whatever. You can do that. Like I would typically, usually for me, it was 2 times a week, but there was a window where it was 3 when I was really trying to make progress. And what that meant was that a lot of other pressing in my training just disappeared. So whenever I was doing a pressing motion with the upper body, it was being done specifically to improve my handstand push-ups. So I wasn't doing thrusters. I wasn't doing split jerks. I wasn't doing a lot of burpees. I wasn't doing a lot of ring dips, right? All of my pressing was in these, kind of dense, bodybuilding-esque, I'm here to get better at handstand push-ups for the next hour of work. And that was happening 3 times a week. So then that meant, in order for those sessions to be hyper effective, in order for me not to get, issues in my shoulder and my tricep from all the pressing, I couldn't also just do, the next day I'm doing a workout with a bunch of thrusters, and I'm going to do a bunch of ski erg, and I'm going to do a bunch of burpees, and I'm going to do a workout with a million ring muscle ups. Because guess what? I'm already doing so much pressing. I can't just add on top of that all the other movements that are pressing-esque movements in the CrossFit sort of movement library. You just have to choose the ones, at least for me. I was like, I need to get better at strict handstand push-ups. My strict press here and my strict pressing ability needs to get better. So that's where all of those units of energy of my training are going to go into. And then, we're just going to have to basically avoid doing all these other, pressing like movements, like even wall balls. It's like, Brent, you're good at wall balls. You're just not going to be throwing that ball. You can be doing front squats, you can be doing back squats, you can push sleds, but yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So sum it up, guys, just find a way to press a little bit more.
Yeah, pretty much. and make sure with the mobility stuff that that needs to be there, or if it's maybe it's your diet. But yeah. And then, yeah, I could get into the nuts and bolts of like the types of pressing that worked for me, but I think that's, for most people, that's not as important.
Yeah, the positions is huge. That's pretty much any movement, any skill. Yeah. If you're not in an optimal position, or if it's not easy to get in that position, it's like you're swimming upriver. It's not going to be, you have to fix that first. Which, spoiler, one of my latest YouTube videos, we talk about that a lot. It's movement economy, and why it's one of the 4 major characteristics of a great CrossFit athlete, and that's across the board for everything. One movement. Is there a like your favorite bodybuilding movement, a favorite pressing movement, or something that you enjoyed and you felt like you gotta, it doesn't even have to be applied to anyone else, just for you. What movement did you love doing and felt like you got a lot of value out of?
For strict handstand push-ups?
Yeah, or pressing, or maybe anything that you thought was good for your progress in pressing.
Yeah, I felt like when performing any sort of press for the strict handstand push-up, I liked it with bands. I found that it made the lockout harder. And so for strict handstand push-ups, you're going from here to here. So it's really, you're not going all the way. So I would set up the squat bars, like the safety squat bars, at about 4 head height. And I would use whether it's a trap bar or a barbell. So I would have to touch there. So simulating the strict handstand push-up, and band resisted. I found those were band resisted, and then, limiting that range. And you don't have to have you could do it with a mirror. So you just say, hey, I'm going to go until, or I'm just going to go until the barbell gets in the way of my eyes, and I can just kind of see it in the same spot. So I'd say that band resisted, I feel like. And to me, sometimes with bands, obviously the thing with bands is that as you get closer to lockout, the resistance increases, right? So it's as if someone's adding more weight to the top, whether that's with a squat or a deadlift. But something I found with a squat and with pressing is you feel more connected to the bar. Like in a squat, especially with heavy band tension, it forces you to stay in with a straight bar path, and you're going to feel it if that bar path is moving forward or moving backwards. And it's the same with pressing. It felt like my triceps were just working more to just stay in like real connection with that, as opposed to just like pressing and then following through. In the same way, if you're like doing a kipping pull up, you're gonna kip and pull, and then you might like kind of relax and use that and then do it again. You can't do that with bands. So that's one. basically any form of banded strict press with a shortened range of motion. And then probably tricep accessories, I would say like a diamond press. So a dumbbell like this and like that. I think that's what that's called, a diamond
French
overhead.
press.
French press, sure. Yeah. I felt like that had a good carryover to handstand push-ups. I didn't really like the traditional like tricep pull down. I just found that didn't really work for me. But any sort of like skull crusher or JM press, I think there's some value there. The JM press is really hard to get right, but when you hit that sweet spot, it's a good, and it's a little more of a compound movement as well. But yeah, anything, I think I found those movements for my triceps worked well. And as we got more into the wall facing, we did a little more incline bench. And like almost like a seated strict press. So like not incline like this, but more kind of like that. And I feel like that helped as well. So
yeah. Are you familiar with Coach Sam Smith? He used to be with OPEX and now with Proof 3. He coaches George Sterner currently, but his favorite he was my coach for a long time and good friend, but he loves the French press. Great for triceps, and you're already in shoulder, you're in extension. So, it challenges the if you get a pump, it's still going to challenge your overhead position, but he loves that.
I don't think I know Sam Smith. I Googled him here. He does not look familiar, but maybe, yeah, I'm sure I've seen him around, but cool.
Great stuff. Worth a follow and worth checking out. He's got great information and a good educator for the sport on coaching. But yeah, so the banded press, you could just wear your juggernog helmet if you don't have the spotter arms and just tap your head.
Nice.
And then the French press, obviously great. The incline press, I think a lot of people could probably just gain because they just don't do it that much. And if it's like a low hanging fruit or like a new stimulus, it might be something to add in. And like you said, especially with the, the wall facing and adding the deficit, because you're kind of at that angle where you're pressing a little more in front. Yeah. That could be great. All right. I think that was good. The next one, which you don't have to be as lengthy if you don't want, but it's nutrition. And I know you had a great nutrition coach. I believe her name was Amy.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one of the biggest challenges I think I have faced, athletes have faced, coaches have faced is you're in a sport where you have to be fueled. Like you have to be fueled and even just staying like at maintenance could make people feel, just sluggish, which maybe timing has a lot to do with it. But, what would you say to someone who's battling with, they need a lot of fuel, but they're maybe struggling with gaining too much weight, or maybe it's under eating too, but just in general, we're in a sport where you have to eat a lot, but body being the lowest weight possible while being as strong as possible is still, really good. That's like a challenge, but something that people are striving for.
Yeah, I think something I've realized really only over the past year and a half is how I am very unique in that I've never, growing up with swimming and even volleyball, we would eat like crazy all day and this was in middle school and high school. And so when I started CrossFit, like I could have a whole meal 10 minutes before a workout or a training session, and it just didn't bother me. Or maybe I was experiencing the same physical things that other people experience, but I just didn't care. I feel bloated or whatever those, the words people use. And I'd go, and so I think I know that I don't do a good job of relating to those issues. Because that's something for me that came very easily. I do know that it is a problem for people. I don't know if it is a problem for people. I really don't know what to do to help guide them through that journey to get them to a place where they're eating more. I was talking to a coach. This is about another issue. It's about so Jeremy Meredith. He helped me through a bunch of strength stuff. He does one-on-one coaching. He's great. Jeremy's like really smart. He's been to the CrossFit Games 2011, 2012. And he was speaking about an athlete he was coaching who kind of got bored with his program and like wanted to move on. He's like, "Oh, do I need to change?" And I was like, "No." And I said, I'm like, are you looking to be entertained as an athlete, or are you looking to get better?
Mhm.
And so sometimes with food, it's like, I mean, I'd burp all the time. Like in competition right before a workout starts, I'm sitting there like, it's kind of, um, felt impolite, but I was burping. It didn't bother me. It was a side effect of eating a bunch of food. And then once the workout started, I was fine. But I'd be on the starting line, like, kind of burping. Uh, I don't know, and I think for some people they're like, oh, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
well, do you want to be comfortable? Do you want to be happy? Do you want it to be easy, or are you going to eat this food? And yeah, it's hard to eat food. Like there'd be most times when I'm competing, I have to eat a bunch of food. I didn't really want to. I would eat it anyway. I'd push it down. That was sometimes the hardest part of the weekend. My wife and I would joke about that. So yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I do have more of a relation to it than I give credit for, but it's as essential as getting in the warm up, as getting in the cool down, as it's more important than that. And so you have to find a way to do it. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
how to find, I don't know how to tell someone how to do it, but you have to find a
Yeah.
way.
Okay. So so maybe like more on the opposite side where they are eating a lot, but they're trying to find a way of like, hey, I need to keep eating and I want to keep eating, but I don't know if it's too much. I don't know if it's, is it affecting me negatively, or
Mm.
is this, 200-gram bowl of rice like actually, what I really need? And, like you know, how would you go about, encouraging someone to just make the right steps?
Yeah, I mean, speak with Amy Cox or Amy Farmer. Sorry, she's married. Speak with Amy Farmer at Target Nutrition. No. But find someone you can trust, right? Or split test it.
I'll write
But
her name down so I can get it on.
yeah,
Maybe she'll come on the
yeah.
show.
Amy Farmer from Target Nutrition, and
Yeah,
I've
follow
turned a
Target.
yeah, I've turned a bunch of athletes onto her, and all of them have been happy. They did so.
Yeah, it
Um,
seems to be working well for Colton. He gives her a lot of
yeah, he
props.
does. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I turned Colton onto her and a few other athletes recently, and yeah, no, she knows what's going on. So yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, so if it's ever too complex, you have to outsource. You got to get someone who knows what they're
yes,
doing.
yeah, and when in doubt, just probably. I mean, more often than not, what I see, especially at competitions, is people don't eat enough. I hate to
Mhm.
typically, the average, whatever, American, Canadian, it's usually like you're probably eating too much or you're just drinking too much alcohol and snacking in the evenings. But when it comes to CrossFit folks that are competitive, usually they're not eating enough. That's usually the norm. But it's a big generalization, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of what Colton said. He was saying like he felt more fueled, he could do more work, and then he was continually leaning out. So it was like he was able to do more, able to dig deeper, able to recover better, and it ended up helping him by allowing him to do a little bit more and also maintain a good body composition, which I understand is going to be hard for people, and it's probably a long process. Like you said, anything you're going to do or want to get better at, it's not going to happen in 10 to 12 weeks most of the time.
Yeah.
So just got to keep chipping away. All right, got another question from Dr. Marcora here. Okay, how to get as much carbs as possible? I suggest the work by Asker Jeckenrup. All the tour cyclists use his strategies. All right, I'm gonna
Cool.
Google it real quick. Asker Jeckenrup nutrition. All right, thank you, Dr. Marcora.
There we go.
He's from Italy, so he's got all the cool endurance plugs over there.
Cool.
He's probably got a good EPO plug too. Maybe we need to reach out about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a joke. That was a joke. But not really. All right. Okay, cool. So Amy, she may be a doctor. Amy Farmer. I know she's Australian. I know they have some strict rules and regulations with nutrition.
Yeah.
So she'll hopefully get on the pod soon. All right. Another quick area: season planning, or just training planning in general, because you have a lot of the diehard CrossFitters or people who follow the methodology, which I think is kind of like at a real split right now, because you read the first couple articles of the CrossFit articles that Greg put out, which Michael Fitzgerald, correct?
Oh yeah.
OPT. He just did a recent podcast kind of going over the first 3 articles of Greg Glassman and went over them, and he actually had a lot of really great stuff to say about it. Then talked about kind of just in retrospect, like how much he liked it then, what he likes now, what he feels has changed. They were really good episodes. And in one, it was basically routine is the enemy. Like we don't CrossFit doesn't back squat on Mondays every week. And then kind of where in a recent podcast, Rich was talking about, like, we still do CrossFit. It's CrossFit. It's changed. Like, we do plan and we do stuff on the same day of the week. It's still CrossFit, which to me, I still feel like that does pull away from the core of it, but that is what you have to do in order to progress and get better for the sport. So what do you think about that in terms of like planning, from basic periodization, maybe like accumulation and intensification, or like, a base phase and a tough phase and pre-comp? How can someone go about that if they're struggling? Maybe they're looking at it, they're like, I don't know, should I just do .com and do my own thing and add my stuff, or should I follow a program? Should I get a coach? I mean, I feel like I know what you're going to say, but what would you say to them?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, there's a lot there. I think what's interesting is that CrossFit means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I think the sweet spot in the future, hopefully, is determining, okay, what is right now? I mean, this is more like, I'm not answering your question yet, so hold on. But if we're speaking about CrossFit globally and CrossFit as a business, they don't have any actual control of CrossFit as a business as to what goes on in the affiliates, which is fine, but it's the truth. So there is a certain degree of lack of control as to what CrossFit then is. And so I think what becomes interesting is looking at, I have ideas on this, but what is CrossFit undeniably to everyone right now, right? So it probably becomes a much broader definition than, looking at like the actual verbiage on the original journal articles, or looking, because even if you look at the cumulative nature of every single CrossFit journal article and get it to spit out a 3-paragraph definition as to what CrossFit is, it's probably going to be pretty general. But most people, when you speak to them, are going to have a far more specific definition as to what CrossFit is. Anyway, all of that to say, if you are looking to compete, I used to joke, I'm like, yeah, I'm really fit 3 weekends of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And usually one of those weekends wasn't the first week of the Open. Right. Because for me, that wasn't as much of a priority. So, my scores in the Open, part of that's, the types of workouts that are there aren't as suited to my abilities as well.
Well,
but
when you first came on the scene, they were good.
Yeah, well, that's
like,
because
who's this 6'2", Canadian who's like, top 40 in the world, and it's like year 1, year 2.
Yeah, I mean, the Open's changed since then. But
5 weeks.
Yeah, just that's another. I mean, I could get into that another time. But
yeah.
Really, I mean, if you're looking to compete, this is the thing. You can't be. If everyone is extraordinary, no one is. And it's the same with training. If you say, I just train hard all year, you're not training hard all year. You're training moderately all year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, because hard is relative to the average. Right? That's the only way you can say something is hard. So,
or you can make something really hard. It doesn't make it effective either.
Yeah, I guess hard could be, yeah, I'm pushing to a 10 out of 10 RPE, and my heart rate is, near its max every single time I train. It's like, okay, that, I guess, yes, you are training hard all the time. Is it effective? Are you pushing what that maximum ability is to something new? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of research to probably support that in other sports. So yeah, I think having seasons to your training, right? Having periodization, it doesn't have to be anything super fancy, but having peaks and swells. So you have, all right, the hardest part of my training should probably be 3 weeks or 2 weeks out from a competition. And then I'm going to have, anywhere from a couple days to a week or so where I taper off and deload. And then I'm going to go into that competition feeling great. But, 2 weeks, 3 weeks out, I'm going to feel kind of terrible. And I'm going to be, we used to call it the big sad, where I was just emotionally kind of at my limit, and I was just sad because all the training was causing me to feel that way. And it was sort of unavoidable. And I would do things to combat that, but it was more just being accepting of the fact that I was in that situation because of the training, and it wasn't anything wrong. And I'd have to manage that. Even just, my wife and I would joke like, oh, I'm feeling very anxious right now. I need to just, I just need to be careful of just what I do today, because I just don't have any patience for anything because of the training.
Would you watch old videos of you like winning an event? Like the big sad's coming. I got to go to YouTube and watch myself win an event.
Yeah, no, I never did. Maybe I should have done that. I never did that. But anyway, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think, because most people probably have a good idea of that, but they'll kind of get caught up with it. Like I'm a year out from competition. Now they're 2 months into training. They start to feel great again. And, maybe they're like, wow, I'm doing well. And they'll just really be itching to push it more and push it more. Right. And, I think it's hard for some people to keep their, you do want to keep your eyes on like, hey, maybe I'm trying to compete the best in the open, and that's 12 months from now. And they're not thinking of like, well, by the end of this, 4 months, I'm trying to get here. They're kind of seeing past that and just looking at the open instead of, looking into what I need to get done right now, or what I need to get better at right now. What is the priority? And that can be outside of performance too. Like you said, you got anxious or you felt a certain way. Well, you probably want to limit that too in the off season, or in the season where you're really trying to build and learn new skills. And, because you want to feel good about that. You want to feel confident, and you want to have a great time training. I know it's not all, sunshine and rainbows, but you know what I mean? It's, it's enjoyable, and you got to kind of want to do that. But I think there is a big divide right now on how to do that. It's like, I need to get better at back squats. I better do this, insane, method, this, Bulgarian method, or I need to do, West side. And maybe you've never even done something like this. You're probably not ready for anything related to that. Or I need to do X. And, they kind of get lost in what the plan actually is.
Yeah, I think that maybe some of that's just communication, right? Especially if you have like a one-on-one coach, and being very aware of, okay, what is this season of my training and my life, and where is this headed, and then you having the self-awareness to know how you're feeling, and having short-term goals that are all related. And some people need more short-term goals, right? So, it might be, hey, I want to get my engine better. And so we're going to do a big 4 months here of just straight cardio, zone 2, and maybe some intervals. And then that's going to transition into more, mixed modal stuff, and then into like actual, like really hard CrossFit Opens type stuff. And so maybe at the end of every 2 months or 4 months, you have a test, or you say, hey, we're going to do a triathlon. You're going to do a sprint tri locally, or something to kind of keep people focused, because not everyone can just, train in the dark room for 12 months leading up to a single competition. And what that can also do is create anxiety and stress around like, oh my gosh, 12 months of my life I've been dedicated towards this one weekend. And all of that stress mentally is going to result in a poor performance, because you're just not going there to just have fun and express what you can do. And you're not going to be hungry. You're going to be afraid. And there's just a lot of anticipation. But yeah, I think generally speaking, you can train to just always be ready, and that's fine too. But, I think that if you're looking for like peak athletic performance at competitions, you're not going to find a lot of sports where those athletes are just at their best all the time. It never worked for me, at least. Like I would, I was with Josh Bridges and we were talking about that. Like I would always PR my training times on the competition floor, and I'd PR my lifts on the competition floor. And I felt like some of that's mental. And then I think some of that had to do with the training as well, right? Where I think those things are combined, because it was a belief that my best was coming, because the training was focused on the best coming. And then, the way in which we did, even if I was, lifting, so, let's say we knew we had a 1 rep max snatch, I would hit some higher percentage weights, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, 1 week out, but I wouldn't go for that big lift. I would save it for the day, knowing that I would get it. And the training didn't tire me out. So I did have that one like peak snatch left, but then there was also this like excitement. And this, this mental, like, oh man, you're going to get it. Like those snatches, like they're all building up to this, baby, you got this. And that's part of it. Whereas, if you just PR your snatch, let's say you're like, oh, I want to snatch 300. So you snatch 300 3 weeks out, you snatch 300 2 weeks out, you snatch 300 1 week out. What left is there for the competition? And especially if you post those all on Instagram, like there's nothing left for the show anymore. There's nothing left to show anyone. There's nothing left for the pageantry of you taking the floor. It's like odds are you're probably going to miss the 300. I think, at least that's my opinion.
Or get 301.
Yeah. I feel like there's, you have to keeping something to yourself and keeping something special and yeah, keeping something special for that moment and the belief that you're capable of something extraordinary in that moment and saving that in your training. Because if what I see a lot of people do is they're worried they won't have it. So they have to prove it to themselves and their ego and their self-belief. So they try to hit the 300 a week out or 4 days out because they're afraid.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so
Yeah.
is it the actual lift and the exhaustion from that lift that means they weren't able to hit it? Or is it that they don't have the belief and they're hitting that lift 4 days out because they're afraid they don't, oh, maybe I don't have it anymore. Maybe I don't have it. I know I hit 300 a couple months ago, but training hasn't been great. I should probably hit it. I should probably just hit it. Let me just hit it. Their coach is saying, don't do it. Don't do it. They're like, I'm just going to do it. And then they do it. And you're like, well, you're telling me you don't. You're telling yourself and you're telling me and you're telling the world you don't believe that you can do it when it matters. So you're anxiously having to keep proving to yourself to calm yourself down. And then, the truth is you don't believe. So I don't know.
Yeah, no. It reminds me something that Sam Smith taught me, and then we talked about a lot on podcasts and shared with our clients and athletes was raising minimums and not maximums. Being able to, his example is like, well, if you can snatch 300, like doing that continuously is not going to help you in training because you've already, let's just say 300 is a great score for a male. But if you can go into the gym once a week and if you could hit 275, that's great. And then, you could always hit it. You'd never miss it. You knew it was there. And then maybe a year later, now you can do that with 280. And you don't actually have to dig in and you're leaving room on the table for a competition or for an actual day where you'll max. And people are really hyper focused on the maximum. Like I'm always trying to, create that max where, if you focus on the minimums where you can always perform well and always improve and move the needle just a little bit, leaving room to grow, you'll probably have, a lot more success in the sport or at least when it matters on game day.
Yeah, I think that's really, I agree.
All right. Someone says hello, Craig.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig. All right. I did recently see the PFA. Now I'm really blanking, but they put out, you guys or somebody put out, there was like some new free resource for people. Is that correct? What was it?
Yeah, I mean, we're working on a bunch of resources so that we're getting some services directly from the PFA to athletes. And right now that looks like some financial resources. We're actually working on a heat preparation, really like thorough document that's hopefully as applicable as possible for athletes that are going to be competing at competitions where it's hot. And that's just one of the things that, making sure that the PFA can be leaders for athletes directly, providing them with services. We have some services are for specifically members, and then some will just be more broadly available for any athlete that goes to the website. And I think that's just really important to kind of lead from the front and not only work in our advocacy efforts to improve competitions, but also just directly serve athletes and give them confidence they can come to us when they need something.
Understood. Okay, I'm trying to remember what it was. I thought it was something recent y'all had posted. That was
it's probably the financial resources.
Okay, maybe that was it.
Yeah, so there's this great company, Beckbode, and they do, yeah.
That's right. Was there did you guys team up with was it like a CPA or someone that was helping?
Yeah, they provide financial services, a bunch of different types. And, I mean, I experienced this a bit myself, but a lot of athletes, all of a sudden, wow, I won my first paycheck from a competition. And then the competition says, hey, fill out this form. Like it's maybe a W8 Ben or a W9. And they're going like, what is this? Right. And so that becomes, and I've heard of stories of athletes, winning money overseas. Maybe they're American, they win it in Dubai. And then, there's like a tax bill they weren't aware of. And it becomes interesting. Right. So, hopefully providing some guidance and some resources there. And we're working on other things those are some initial steps, but there's a lot of services that we can provide directly to athletes that can just help them, sustain themselves in their career, physically, mentally. We're working on some mental health benefits. We already have one right now specifically for members, but more of that, and hopefully some more resources to things like travel insurance, Medicare, stuff like that.
Cool. Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited.
So the members, I know you guys had like a criteria of who could be a member. And is there a way like long term where people might be like, okay, I can pay, maybe I pay $100 a year or it's $10 a month, and I can get into this level where I'll have access to these resources, or maybe I could call someone or send an email and be in this group where I could ask questions, and I'm an up and comer, or maybe I just started, but kind of how weightlifting has their organizations for USAW, so that you can compete in the events, but also then you get to you have access to people, or whatever resources they provide.
Yeah, I think in the future, would love to help positively impact as many athletes as possible, right? And we provided some guidance, myself personally, to some athletes that are not official members yet, that were in need of it. Really, the means right now, we're looking to advocate for the best athletes in the world, right? And our goal is so that athletes can have a strong voice to shape the future of the sport, right? It's governance, it's the season structure, the best practices at events, the financial sustainability of the sport for themselves and the sport as a whole. And right now that just doesn't exist. So that's our main focus, and doing that with and on behalf of the best athletes in the sport. We're already, we're a nonprofit, right? We don't have any income coming in. So for us to try to initially to broaden the scope of the athletes that we're hoping to serve isn't in the immediate short term, but certainly long term, if we can provide value to as many athletes as possible, that's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that's cool. So and when you say that's like non-existent, the the planning and the consistency, do you think a big part of that just comes with kind of the infancy and the connection to CrossFit the company, and having to deal with that instead of being like its own sport entity?
I think there's a bunch of factors. I think there's just systematic cultural factors within the sport, or this is how we do things around here. Every sport goes through this evolution, right? CrossFit, or the sport of functional fitness, it's not novel it's certainly novel in certain aspects of what's happening on the competition floor, which is what makes it so exciting and why we're so passionate about it. But as sports transition from very young sports into this next phase of, whether you want to call it professionalism or not, but just essentially growth and transitioning more into an organized sport instead of using the word professional, there become higher and higher demands from the athletes competing in the sport that are making it their life's work, right? There's a lot of athletes that are spending most of their day trying to become better athletes. So what they're looking for from the sport, it increases, right? In how well it's organized, how professionally run the competitions are, all of those things, right? The demands of someone who's putting their entire life into something, they're going to be more interested in the every detail of it than someone who's training a couple times a week and doing it for fun. So we're just transitioning as a sport through that, and there's just currently not a means for athletes through a strong unified voice to shape change in the sport, whether that be the season structure, whether that be the best practices at competitions. And historically, when that happens, when that's unlocked, a lot of great things are going to happen for everyone, not just the athletes, but the sport as a whole.
Yeah. Okay. And then do you guys have you talked with WFP or chatted with them about anything, any collab or help?
Yeah, we've had some really good conversations with them. I think they're very early in their growth as a company and with their goals. So they're focused on getting their events to be successful, as independent events, and making sure those are successful, getting the media running. But we've had some really good introductory conversations. I'm confident that we can mutually expand what we want to see happen with the sport and the athletes in sometime in the future here.
Yeah. Were you at Tour Stop 1? The first?
Yeah, I was able to attend. Cool.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was a good time. It was good to see everyone.
Yeah, I thought I heard I heard a lot of good things from it, from people being in person, and then I heard some criticisms, but it seemed like that they were communicated, and it looks like they were probably gonna, hopefully they act on it. But as a first comp and to be that size, the live stream was tough. I get it, and a lot of I get it's not easy being able to put on a really good live stream, for a competition, and with how they set up. The only thing was it seemed a little bit dark if that's the worst thing, that's probably pretty good. Like, you can still watch it. But I feel like maybe they just adjust some camera settings and it would have been like, I mean, it seemed like a really high level run, a well executed stream on my end. I just hated that it wasn't on YouTube and I couldn't go backwards if I wanted to like
Yeah.
pause and be like, all right, I got to go do something. And then I'm going to watch this event. I was like, the first time I did it, I was like, wait, I can't go back. And then it made me so sad.
Yeah, I haven't really got to experience the event in the way you did online yet.
Yeah.
So I haven't went and attempted to watch that. But yeah, I think I've heard similar things. But yeah, as a fan, as a spectator, I had a good weekend for sure.
Cool. All right. We'll pause it there. Hopefully there'll be a part 2 one day. We'll talk about something maybe cooler. If people didn't enjoy this one, maybe I'll get some feedback. But is there anything you want to plug? Obviously, you got the Propel program. Any sponsors, anything cool coming on the horizon, or anything people should be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, just follow me on Instagram if you're into that sort of thing. The Propel program. I've still got Train Your Weakness, which is if you're looking to just get your first muscle up or improve your double unders, we've got kind of like standalone sort of 6-week programs there, which have helped. Every time I go to a competition, someone bumps into me and says, "Brett, I got my first muscle up because of you." So that's still pretty cool. They're pretty reasonably priced. I think they're like $35 or something like that. So $35 for your first ring muscle up is not a bad deal, I think.
No, that's pretty good.
But yeah, just follow me on Instagram, and hopefully more coming from myself and the PFA in the coming weeks and months. So.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate having you. We're going to end the stream, everybody. I hope everyone enjoyed. Hopefully some cool guests coming up. Maybe Amy Farmer for the nutrition people out there who need to lock in, which is pretty much anyone can improve it. So hopefully we'll get her on soon. I'll get her contact. But thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.